The air up there felt expensive. Not fresh, not clean, just expensive. Eucalyptus candles burned on every table, thick and sharp, the kind of scent that tries too hard. It mixed with perfume alcohol and the heat from too many bodies packed into one rooftop. Chicago stretched out behind the glass railing, lights everywhere, cold wind pushing against the edges of the building. Inside it was loud, too loud. Music thumped through hidden speakers. Champagne bottles popped every few minutes, not normal champagne, the kind that cost $200 just to make a statement. Every sound had a purpose. Every detail was curated. This wasn't a birthday party, it was a performance. And Brittany was the main character. She stood in the center of the VIP section like she owned the skyline. Custom sequined dress, silver, tight, reflecting every flash from the cameras pointed at her. There were at least 20 people filming at once. Phones up, smiles fake, laughter louder than necessary. She turned her head just enough to catch her good side every time. Practiced, rehearsed, perfect. I stood in the back. Dark blazer, no label, no sparkle, sparkling water in a clear glass, no ice. I wasn't there to celebrate. I was there because I needed to see it end. My eyes moved without thinking. Habit. Years of training don't switch off just because you leave the military. 2 exits. Main staircase near the bar. Service door behind the DJ booth. Elevator behind a glass panel. Keycard access. Security posted near the stairs. Not trained. Just hired muscle. Crowd density high. Movement restricted. If something went wrong, most of these people wouldn't know where to go. I took a slow sip. The bubbles burned a little. I kept my face neutral. Across the room, Brittany laughed again, loud, sharp, a little too forced. She lifted her glass for another toast. 30 and thriving, she said like she believed it. The crowd cheered on cue. Carol stood next to her. My mother, red dress. Too tight for her age. Smile stretched thin, but proud. She looked at Brittany like she'd built her from scratch. She never looked at me like that. Never needed to. I was the strong one. The one who didn't need help. The one who didn't complain. That story had been running for years. Tonight it was about to break. I checked the time on my watch. 8:42 p.m., right on schedule. The elevator made a soft sound behind the glass wall. Most people didn't notice. I did. The indicator light blinked once, then stopped. The music cut. Not faded, not lowered. Cut, like someone pulled a plug. The bass dropped out so fast it left a ringing in the air. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. The DJ looked confused. Hands still on the controls. Then the elevator doors locked in place. A solid click. No one laughed. No one moved. The rooftop went quiet in a way that didn't belong there. 6 people stepped out from the service entrance instead. Not dressed for a party. Dark windbreakers. Plain, tactical. Yellow letters across the chest. FBI. No hesitation. They walked straight in. No rush. No panic. Just control. The kind you only see when people know exactly why they're there. The crowd parted without being told. Phones lowered. Smiles disappeared. Brittany blinked fast, confused at first. Then something shifted. She knew. Not details, not facts, but enough. The lead agent didn't look around, didn't scan the room. He walked straight toward the VIP section, toward her, toward the center of the performance. Her hand tightened around her glass. I saw it from across the room. Tiny movement, crack in the script. Carol leaned in, whispering something fast, urgent. Brittany shook her head, forced a laugh. Too loud again. Is this a joke? She said, looking around. No one answered. The agent stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back a little. He didn't smile, didn't introduce himself, just watched her. That's when she broke. Not slowly, instantly. Her eyes snapped across the room. Found me, locked on. Her finger came up perfectly manicured, shaking just enough to give it away. It's her, she shouted. Too loud for the silence, too fast, too desperate. She handles my finances. Whatever went wrong, my sister did it. The words hit the room like glass breaking. People stepped back. A few gasped. Phones came back up, not for celebration this time, for evidence, for content. I didn't move, didn't react. I took another sip of my water. Let it sit for a second, then swallowed. Agent Vance walked past me, didn't slow down, didn't even look at me. He already knew where I stood. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a pair of handcuffs, Real ones. Steel. Heavy. No drama. No speech. Just procedure. Brittany stepped back. Wait, no, this is a mistake. The click cut her off. One wrist, then the other. Locked. Clean. Final. Her mouth stayed open, but nothing came out. For a second, she looked smaller, like the room finally saw her without the filters. Carol moved forward. Excuse me, you can't. This is her birthday. There has to be. Another agent stepped in front of her. Calm, firm. Ma'am, step back. She didn't, not right away. Then she saw the rest of them. The jackets, the badges, the fact that no one was laughing anymore. She stopped. The rooftop stayed silent. Chicago kept moving below us. Cars, lights, life. Up here, everything froze. Brittany looked at me again. This time, no performance. Just panic. Pure, raw, ugly. I met her eyes. No anger, no satisfaction. Just stillness. She wanted me to fix it. That's what she always expected. That's what they both expected. I didn't move. I didn't speak. Agent Vance started reading her rights. Clear, slow, loud enough for everyone to hear. Each word landed heavier than the last. Somewhere behind me, someone whispered, "Oh my God." Someone else started recording again. Not her dress, not her drink, her arrest. Her empire collapsing in real time. I set my glass down on the table next to me. Didn't rush it, didn't slam it, just placed it there, exactly where it belonged. Then I finally spoke. Not to the crowd, not to my mother. Just quiet enough, but clear. I don't handle your finances, Brittany. She stared at me like I'd just changed the rules of the game. Like I wasn't supposed to say that. Like I wasn't supposed to do anything except clean up her mess. Too late for that. The agents turned her toward the elevator. The same one that had locked minutes earlier. Now open, now waiting. No music came back on. No one tried to stop them. No one even pretended this was normal. Because it wasn't. It never was. But to understand why my sister tried to serve me to the feds on a silver platter and why those agents were reading her Miranda rights instead of mine, you have to look at the invisible digital empire she built entirely out of my stolen identity. Have you ever stood in a room where someone tried to destroy your life in front of everyone, only to realize they'd already destroyed their own? And if you've ever been the quiet one, people underestimated the one they thought would just take it. What would you have done differently? Subscribe if you want to hear how I turned silence into something a lot louder than revenge. I didn't chase after them when the elevator doors closed. I just stood there for a second watching the space she used to fill. Then I turned and walked out. No goodbye. No scene. Just air that didn't smell like money. That's the thing about moments like that. People think they start at the explosion. They don't. They start years earlier. Quiet, small, easy to ignore. I learned early that my family ran on 2 different rule books. One for Brittany, one for me. Mine was simple. Handle your own problems. Don't complain. Don't ask for help. Hers was flexible. Mistakes got covered. Bills got paid. Excuses got accepted. And my mother enforced both systems without ever saying it out loud. I was deployed most of my adult life. Army Cyber Command doesn't put you in the field with a rifle. They put you in rooms with no windows and temperatures set low enough to keep the machines stable. Server racks humming, screens glowing, time moving in shifts instead of days. You track threats that don't have faces. You look for patterns, anomalies, someone logging in from a place they shouldn't be, someone pulling data they don't have clearance for. It's not dramatic, it's quiet work, but it matters, because the damage happens before anyone realizes there's a problem. I liked that. Clean rules. Clear objectives. You either prove something or you don't. No guessing, no favoritism. Back home, it was the opposite. I'd call when I could. Short conversations, mostly updates. I'm fine, work's busy. Yeah, I'll be home in a few months. Carol never asked for details. She asked about Brittany. Did you see her new business? She's doing amazing things. You should support her more. Support meant money. It always meant money. First it was the makeup line. Custom packaging, influencer kits, photo shoots. Carol took out a second mortgage to fund it. I saw the paperwork once when I came home on leave. Didn't say anything. Brittany posted launch photos online. Perfect lighting, big smile, CEO energy. The company lasted 6 months. Inventory didn't move. Customers complained. Shipping delays, refund requests. It disappeared as quietly as it started. Carol called it a learning experience. Then came the dropshipping store. New logo, new brand, same energy. Late nights turned into business strategy sessions, which meant Brittany on her laptop, ordering products from overseas while watching reality TV. Carol paid for ads, paid for inventory, paid for a consultant who never delivered anything useful. I got a message one night. Hey, can you send a little something to help with the store? Just temporary. No number, no details. Just a little something. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, because I knew how that system worked. Temporary never meant temporary, and helping once meant being expected to help forever. Carol called the next day. You know your sister is trying, right? I know, I said. She just needs support. She has support. She needs financial support. I let that sit. You don't need help, Morgan. You're the tough one. There it was, the line she always used. Not praise, not really. Just a way to close the conversation, to justify not showing up for me. I didn't argue. There's no point arguing with a system that doesn't see itself. So I went back to work. 14 months overseas, no sunlight, no holidays, just screens, reports, and the steady hum of equipment. You learn to focus. You learn to detach. You learn that emotions slow you down when you're trying to solve a problem. When my deployment ended, I booked a flight home. No announcement, no build-up, just a date and a ticket. I landed late afternoon. Chicago air felt warmer than I expected. Or maybe I just wasn't used to it. I grabbed my duffel bag and drove straight to the house. Same driveway, same front door, same everything. At least that's what I thought. I walked in. No one heard me at first. Music played from somewhere upstairs, upbeat, loud, not my kind of music. I set my bag down and looked around. The living room had new furniture, expensive. Decor that didn't match anything from before. Clean, staged, like a showroom. Mom, I called out. Footsteps upstairs. Fast. Brittany came down first, phone in hand, already recording. Oh my God, you're back, she said, pointing the camera at me. No hug, no pause, just content. Say hi to my followers, she said. I didn't. I stepped past her. Where's Mom in the kitchen? She said, still filming. I walked in. Carol stood at the counter slicing something. She looked up, smiled. Oh, you're home, she said. No surprise. No emotion. Just acknowledgement. Yeah, I said. Flight okay? It was fine. She nodded like we were discussing the weather. Then she went back to what she was doing. Dinner's in an hour, she said. I grabbed my bag and headed upstairs. Muscle memory. Same path I'd taken my whole life. Left at the hallway. Second door. My room. I opened it and stopped. Everything was gone. The bed, the desk, the bookshelf, even the carpet looked different, replaced. The walls were painted white, bright lights mounted in the corners. 3 ring lights facing a central spot. Clothing racks lined the side wall. Designer labels. Shoes displayed like a store. A camera set up on a tripod. Backdrop options stacked in the corner. It wasn't a bedroom. It was a studio. Brittany walked up behind me. Do you like it? She said. I didn't answer. Carol came up the stairs. Oh, I meant to tell you, she said. We converted your room, for what I asked even though I already knew. For her brand, Carol said like it was obvious. She needs the natural lighting for her partnerships. I looked at the window, same window I used to sit next to, now covered with diffusers. Controlled light, manufactured. Where am I sleeping? I asked. Carol wiped her hands on a towel. There's a sofa in the basement, she said. It's fine. You won't be here long anyway, right? Not a question, a statement. Brittany checked herself in the mirror, adjusted her hair, didn't look at me, didn't need to. Her world didn't include me unless I was useful. I nodded once. No argument, no reaction. I picked up my bag, turned around, and walked back down the stairs. I carried my duffel bag down to the damp basement without a single argument. My mother mistook my silence for submission. She didn't realize that an intelligence analyst doesn't argue when they spot an anomaly. They start digging. I set my bag down on the basement floor and didn't turn on the light right away. It smelled like damp concrete and old carpet. I didn't mind. I'd worked in worse places. That night wasn't the moment everything clicked. It was just another data point. Another small inconsistency in a system that already felt off. The real moment came months later. 6 months ago, I was out of the military by then, transitioning to civilian life, paperwork, interviews, background checks. I kept things simple. I wanted a small townhouse. Nothing flashy, just mine. Clean, quiet, paid for the right way. I scheduled a meeting with a loan officer downtown. Tuesday morning, 10:15. I showed up early. Of course I did. The office was cold. Not freezing like a server room, but close enough. The kind of air conditioning that hums constantly. White noise. Predictable. I sat in a gray chair across from a small desk. Neutral colors. Safe design. Nothing personal. The loan officer smiled when she walked in. Professional, polite. "Good morning, Morgan," she said. "Morning." We shook hands. She sat down, opened a folder, and started typing. Standard questions. Income, employment history, documentation. I answered everything clean. No hesitation, no gaps. Because there weren't any. She nodded as she went through the checklist. Everything looked right, until it didn't. Her typing slowed, then stopped. Her eyes moved across the screen again. Once, twice. Something changed. Not dramatic. Just a shift. Subtle, but obvious if you know what to look for. She reached for a printer button. The machine behind her started up. Paper sliding out one page at a time. Too many pages. She didn't speak while it printed, just watched. Then she stood up, grabbed the stack, and walked back over. 18 pages. She didn't slide them across right away. She looked at me first. Not judgment, not confusion, something else. Pity. I've seen that look before, usually right before someone delivers bad news they didn't expect to give. "I'm going to be honest with you," she said. I nodded. "Okay." She placed the report in front of me, face up. No hesitation now. I looked down. First number, credit score, 430. I didn't react, not on the outside. Inside something paused, not panic. Just recalibration. That number didn't belong to me, not even close. I flipped to the next page. Accounts 1, 2, 3, 4. All platinum credit cards. High limits. Maxed out. Delinquent. 30 days. 60, 90. Some in collections. I kept going. A car lease. Luxury brand. Monthly payment I had never authorized. Late. Repeatedly. Then 2 personal loans. 5 figures each. Missed payments. Penalties stacking. Total debt. Just over $140,000. All under my name. All tied to my social security number. I leaned back slightly. The chair creaked. The air conditioning hummed louder for a second. Or maybe I just noticed it more. The loan officer spoke again, soft, careful. "Do you recognize any of these accounts?" I shook my head once. "No," she nodded, like she expected that answer. "We can pause the application," she said. "You may want to file a fraud report." "Yeah," I said. I closed the folder, not slammed, just closed. "Thank you," she hesitated. "If there's anything we can do, I'll handle it." I stood up, picked up the report, walked out. No rush, no visible reaction. The parking garage was quiet. Concrete walls, echoing footsteps. I sat in my car, didn't start it right away. I opened the folder again. This time I read it like a system, not a victim. Page by page, dates, transaction histories, merchant names, billing addresses, IP logs tied to online applications. That's where it started to come together. Patterns. The same shipping address repeated across multiple accounts. Not random, consistent. A luxury apartment building downtown. I knew that address. I'd seen it in photos, on social media, Brittany's posts, her home, her space. I flipped to the transaction logs. Designer stores, high-end boutiques, travel bookings, flights, hotels. All things she posted about. All things she claimed were brand deals, collaborations, gifts. None of it was free. All of it was charged, to me. I pulled out my phone, opened her profile, scrolled. Post after post. New bag, new shoes, weekend trip. Another party, I matched timestamps. Post times against transaction times. Exact matches, down to the minute. I checked the IP data. Login locations tied to account activity. Same device, fingerprint across multiple applications. MacBook. Same browser version, same operating system. I'd seen that laptop before. On her kitchen counter, in her studio, everything lined up. Not partially, completely. There was no ambiguity, no outside hacker, no unknown threat. Just one user, consistent behavior, predictable patterns. Using my identity as a financial engine, I kept digging. Because 1 account is a mistake. 2 is a pattern, 6 is a system. I found application records, digital signatures, name typed. Not forged physically, just entered, accepted. Because the system trusted the data. My data. I checked the email addresses linked to the accounts, not mine, but close enough to pass initial verification. Variations, extra numbers, slight changes, enough to avoid immediate flags. Not enough to hide from someone who knows where to look. I ran a deeper check, pulled metadata from public posts, geolocation tags, time zones, device IDs embedded in uploads. Everything pointed back to the same user, same routine, same behavior. No attempt to hide, because she didn't think she had to. Why would she? No one had ever stopped her before. I sat there for a long time, not frozen, processing, building a map, not just of the transactions, but of the mindset. She didn't think she was stealing, not really. In her head, this was access, shared resources, family. That's how she justified it. That's how people like her always justify it. I closed my phone, set it on the dashboard, took a breath, slow, controlled. Most people would have driven straight to their mother's house and kicked the door down. They would have screamed until their lungs gave out. But the army taught me a fundamental rule of cyber warfare. When you find a parasite in your network, you don't alert it. You isolate it, and you let it expose its entire system. I drove home without calling anyone. No warning, no confrontation. Silence is useful when you need clean data. I parked, went inside, and set the folder on the kitchen counter. Then I opened my laptop. Not a full freeze, just enough to monitor activity without tipping the user, because that's what this was. A user inside my system. I logged every account from the report. Card numbers, issuers, open dates. I matched her upload times to transaction times. Exact matches kept appearing. Not estimates. Exact. I built a second sheet. Post ID, upload time. Device ID cross-referenced with card usage. Same routine I used in uniform, secure network, encrypted connection, no shortcuts. I started building a case, not for them, for me. First step was containment. I placed fraud alerts on my credit file. Transaction history. Then I pulled everything into a clean spreadsheet, column by column, date, time, merchant, amount, location. Patterns started forming fast. Weekends spiked. Travel clusters around long weekends. High-end retail always tied to social posts within minutes. She wasn't just spending, she was performing the spending. I opened Brittany's profile again. This time I didn't scroll like a viewer. I scraped, saved posts, captured timestamps, logged captions. Every image had metadata. Most people don't think about that. They just upload. But every file carries information, device model, time created, sometimes even location. Same device signature across all major transactions. No variation, no masking. She wasn't hiding. She didn't think she had to. I leaned back for a second. Let the system breathe. Then I moved to the next layer. Delivery confirmations. Every major purchase had a shipping trail, tracking numbers, carrier logs, signature confirmations. I pulled what I could through account access. The rest I reconstructed using transaction references. Most deliveries went to her apartment. High-rise, concierge desk. Signed off under variations of her name. No surprise there, but a few didn't. Smaller items, documents, bank-related mail. Different address, P.O. box. I flagged it. Didn't jump to conclusions, just marked it for later. Next step was IP data. Application logs tied to account creation. Banks keep records. Not always easy to access, but enough leaks through statements and alerts. Login IPs repeated. Same region, same provider, same device fingerprint. I mapped them, visualized access points over time. Everything pointed to one consistent user. No external intrusion, no breach, just internal abuse. I checked login times, late nights, afternoons, random spikes during weekdays. No overlap with my own usage, clean separation. She made sure of that. Smart enough to avoid obvious conflict. Not smart enough to hide long-term. I built a timeline. Account openings, spending bursts, social posts, everything aligned perfectly. This wasn't impulsive. This was structured, sustained, a system running for years. I saved everything, backed it up, then backed it up again. Because once you move forward, you don't get a second chance to capture clean evidence. That's when I reached out, not to a lawyer, not to my mother, to someone who understood systems. Agent Vance. We'd worked together years ago, different branches, same operations. He handled financial crime cases tied to cyber activity. I sent a short message, no emotion, no explanation. Need a consult, identity theft, high value, clean pattern. You available, he responded in under 10 minutes. Call me. I didn't. I drove. Federal building downtown. Security clearance still active for temporary access. I checked in, waited. He met me in a small conference room. Same posture, same focus, no wasted movement. Morgan, he said. Vance. We sat. I slid the folder across the table. He didn't open it right away. Give me the short version, he said. 4 credit cards, car lease, 2 loans, $140,000 in debt. All in my name, user my sister. He nodded once. No surprise. Evidence. I tapped the folder. Structured, time-stamped, cross-referenced with social data and IP logs. He opened it. Started flipping through, slow, careful, no reactions, just processing. Duration, he asked. Estimated 2 to 3 years. Any attempt to hide minimal, enough to pass basic checks, not enough to avoid deep analysis. He kept reading, then he paused. This is clean, he said. I know, he looked up. Why aren't you at a police station? Because I don't want a report, I said. I want a case. That got his attention. Explain. I don't just want the debt cleared. I want it prosecuted. He leaned back slightly. Federal level, yes. Then we need intent pattern and interstate activity. You'll have all 3, I said. He nodded slowly. Keep going. I walked him through everything, the accounts, the transactions, the IP logs, the device fingerprint, the social media correlation. He didn't interrupt, just listened. Then he asked the right question. Mailing addresses. I pulled up the flagged entry. Most accounts tied to her apartment, I said. But not all. I slid a printed page across. Bank statements for 3 accounts routed here. He read the address. P.O. Box. He looked at me. You check registration, not yet. He picked up his phone, made a call, short conversation, just a few lines. Then he hung up. They'll pull the registration, he said. We waited. No small talk. No filler, just silence and the hum of the building's ventilation system. 10 minutes later, his phone buzzed. He read the message. Then he looked up again. Different expression this time. Not surprise. Confirmation. Registered to Carol Hayes, he said. I didn't move, didn't react. But something inside shifted. Not shock. Alignment. Everything clicked into place. Your mother, he added. I know. He tapped the paper once. She's not just aware, he said. She's involved. She's intercepting the statements, I said, making sure I never see them. He nodded. Running interference. We sat there for a second. Let that settle, not emotionally, logically. This wasn't just a sister problem. This was a system, built and maintained. One person spending, one person covering, and one person being drained. Vance closed the folder. You have enough for identity theft, he said. State level, maybe federal if we push it. I'm not pushing, I said. I'm setting it up. He watched me, meaning I want wire fraud, I said. Interstate transaction, high value, clean intent. He nodded slowly. That sticks, he said. Yes. It also escalates everything. I know. He leaned forward. You're sure you want to go that route? I didn't hesitate. Yes. He held my gaze for a second, then nodded once. Then we do it right. No drama, no speeches, just agreement. We started outlining the next steps. Controlled monitoring, evidence consolidation, trigger conditions. No alerts, no disruptions. Let the system keep running. Let the user feel safe. Because that's when they make mistakes. I left the building an hour later. Same calm, same pace. Nothing on the outside had changed. But everything was different now. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was in control. I now had the IP logs, the forged signatures, and the paper trail of my mother's complicity. But to trigger a federal wire fraud charge that would stick permanently, I needed them to make one final massive transaction across state lines. And my mother was about to hand it to me on a silver platter. I left the federal building with a plan and didn't call them. No warnings, no hints. 3 weeks later, my phone lit up with my mother's name. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. Dinner tonight, Carol said. Not a question. What time? 6. Be on time. She hung up, same tone she always used when she thought she was in control. I showed up at 5:58. Of course I did. The house looked the same from the outside. Inside it smelled different, stronger, heavier. Overcooked meat, pot roast. Carol's version of a serious conversation. I stepped into the kitchen. The smell hit first. Burnt edges, thick gravy, too much salt. It sat in the air like something you couldn't escape. Brittany was already at the table, phone in hand scrolling, no camera tonight, no audience, just us. She didn't look up right away. Didn't need to. She assumed I'd sit down and play my role. Carol stood at the stove adjusting something that didn't need adjusting. She turned when she heard me. "You're here," she said. "I am. Sit," I did. Same chair I'd used growing up. Nothing had changed. That was the problem. Plates were already set. Water glasses filled. No wine. That told me everything. This wasn't a celebration. This was a setup. Carol brought the pot roast over and set it down, hard, a little louder than necessary. Steam rose up, the smell got worse. We ate for a minute without talking. Forks, knives, plates. That was it. Then Brittany sighed. Long, dramatic. "I'm dealing with some cash flow issues," she said. I didn't look up. "Okay." She shifted in her seat. "You know how business is," she added. I kept eating. "Depends on the business." Carol shot me a look. Sharp, unhappy. "This is serious, Morgan," she said. I set my fork down, looked at her. "I'm listening." Brittany leaned forward. "My 30th birthday is coming up," she said. "I'm doing something big. Apex Rooftop Lounge, downtown." I nodded once. "I've seen it." "It's exclusive," she said quickly. "High end. A lot of important people will be there. Sounds expensive." "It's an investment," she corrected. "In my brand." There it was. Always the brand. Always the justification. How much, I asked. She hesitated for half a second, then said it. 25,000. The number sat on the table. Heavy. Carol jumped in before I could respond. "It's not as bad as it sounds," she said. "It's just a deposit." I looked at her. "Just. She'll make it back," Carol added. "With partnerships. Exposure. You don't understand how this works." "I understand numbers," I said. "That's enough." Brittany rolled her eyes. "You're being negative," she said. "I'm being accurate." Silence. Tight. Uncomfortable. Carol put her fork down, folded her hands. This was the part she'd been waiting for. "We need your help," she said. "Straight to the point now. No pretending." How, I asked. She looked me in the eye. "Take out a personal loan," she said. "Cover the deposit." I didn't answer right away. I picked up my glass, took a slow sip of water, let the silence stretch. Brittany shifted again, impatient. Carol leaned forward slightly. "You have a steady government job," she continued. "Good income. Good standing." I almost smiled at that. "Good standing, that's one way to say it." "You can handle it," she said. "I can." I agreed. That surprised her. Then I added, "I won't." The air changed. Fast. Brittany sat up straight. What she said. "I'm not taking out a loan for your party." Her face tightened. "It's not just a party," she snapped. "It's my career. It's the bill," I said. "And it's not mine." Carol's expression shifted. The calm mask cracked. "You're being selfish," she said. "No," I said. "I'm being clear." Brittany slammed her hand on the table. "You always do this," she said. "You act like you're better than everyone because you worked some boring job." I didn't react. Didn't need to. Carol stepped in again, stronger now. "Family protects family," she said. "You don't turn your back when your sister needs you." I looked at her. Really looked this time. "No," I said. "You don't drain one family member to fund another." That's when it happened. The slip. Small, but enough. Carol's voice sharpened. "You have a steady job, Morgan. Just absorb the debt," she said. The word hung there. Debt. Not loan. Not help. Debt. I didn't speak. I just watched her. She realized it a second too late, but she kept going. "Your sister's brand is finally taking off," she added quickly. "Don't ruin this for her." Brittany nodded along. "Yeah, don't be so dramatic," she said. "It's not even that much compared to what you make." I let that sit. Then I spoke. "Compared to what I make," I repeated. Carol leaned in. "Yes, so you know about the accounts," I said. Flat, direct, no emotion, silence. Brittany froze. Carol didn't answer, didn't deny it either. That was enough. I picked up my glass again, took another slow sip, set it down carefully. "You've been covering the statements," I said, routing them through a P.O. box. Carol's eyes flickered. There it was, confirmation, not verbal, but clear. Brittany looked between us, confused. "Wait, what are you talking about?" she said. I didn't look at her. I kept my focus on Carol. "You told me I didn't need help," I said. "Because I was the tough one." Carol's jaw tightened. This isn't the same thing, she said. It is, I said. You just didn't think I'd notice. Brittany's voice got louder. Can someone explain what's happening, she said. Carol snapped. Stay out of it, she told her. Too late for that. I leaned back slightly, kept my voice calm. You used my name, I said. My credit, my identity. Neither of them spoke. That told me everything. I nodded once, understood, accepted. Then I picked up my glass again. One more sip, slow, measured. I set it down, looked at both of them. Don't worry, Mom, I said. I'll make sure Brittany's party is paid for. The shift was immediate. Relief, visible. Brittany leaned back, exhaling. Thank you, she said, like she'd just won something. Carol relaxed, shoulders dropping. Knew how this usually ended, with me fixing it, with me absorbing the damage. You're doing the right thing, she said. I didn't respond. Didn't correct her. Didn't explain. Because explanations are for people who are about to change. They weren't. Dinner ended quickly after that. No real conversation. No acknowledgement of what just happened. Just the assumption that the problem was solved. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, headed for the door. Let me know when it's handled, Brittany called after me. I didn't turn around. Didn't answer. I just left. They smiled, thinking they had just successfully bullied the quiet soldier into submission one last time. They had absolutely no idea that I wasn't agreeing to pay for a party. I was greenlighting a federal sting operation. I closed my car door and didn't start the engine right away. I just sat there for a second. Ran through the sequence again. No gaps, no assumptions. Everything had to line up. Because this wasn't about catching them. It was about proving it in a way that couldn't be undone. The next morning, I started the setup. First step was access control. All 4 cards were already flagged. Frozen, monitored. But I didn't need all 4. I needed one. Clean, traceable, predictable. I logged into the issuer portal. Multi-factor authentication. Security questions. All mine. Because it was my identity. I selected the oldest card, the one with the longest history of abuse, the one she trusted the most. I lifted the freeze, not completely, just enough to allow a transaction. Then I set parameters. Spending limit capped just above $25,000. Alerts enabled for every action, real-time logging, no delays, no blind spots. I sat back, watched the screen for a second. Nothing happened. Of course not. Predators don't move when they think they're being watched. They move when they feel safe. So I waited. Day 1 passed. No activity. Day 2, nothing. Day 3, a login attempt. Timestamp 9:14 p.m. Device ID matched. Same MacBook. Same browser. Same IP range. She was checking, testing, making sure access was still there. I didn't interfere. Didn't trigger anything. Let her see what she expected to see. Available credit. No warnings. No resistance. She logged out after 2 minutes. No transactions. Smart, cautious, but not for long. Day 4, midday. Another login. Longer session this time. 7 minutes. Navigation patterns showed her moving through statements, balances, limits, testing the boundaries. Still no charge. Then she logged out again. I made one small adjustment. Raised the visible available credit by a few thousand. Not enough to look suspicious. Just enough to remove hesitation. Then I stepped back. Day 5, nothing. Day 6, everything. Timestamp 2:37 p.m. Login detected. Same device, same IP. But the behavior was different, faster, more direct. No browsing, straight to payment section. Merchant Apex Rooftop Lounge. Amount $25,000. Exactly what I expected. I was already in the federal office. Conference room, same one. Agent Vance sat across from me. Laptop open, connected to a secure monitoring system. We didn't talk much, didn't need to. The screen showed real-time activity. Transaction request initiated. Authorization sequence started. Routing data began to populate. Origin Illinois. Destination payment processor server. Location New York. Interstate. That mattered. That changed everything. I watched the cursor movement mirrored on the system. She hovered for a second, right over the confirmation button. That moment always looks the same. Hesitation, not about right or wrong, just about risk. Then she clicked. Process payment. The system responded instantly. Authorization request sent. Verification complete. Funds approved. Transaction executed. I didn't move. Didn't speak. I just watched the data finalize. Routing confirmed. Cross-state transfer complete. Agent Vance leaned forward slightly. That's it, he said. I nodded once. No emotion, just confirmation. That crosses federal threshold, he added. Wire fraud. Aggravated identity theft. I closed my eyes for half a second. Not relief, not satisfaction, just completion. The system had exposed itself. Fully, no more assumptions, no more gaps. Just evidence. Vance reached for his phone, made a call, short, direct, transaction confirmed. Interstate, amount verified. Proceed with warrant. He listened for a second, then hung up. Judge is on standby, he said. Should be signed within the hour. I looked at the screen again. The transaction sat there, clean, final, irreversible. No refund request yet. No cancellation. She believed it went through without a problem, because from her perspective it did. She had no idea what she just triggered. No idea that a single click moved her from a civil issue into a federal case. No idea that every step she took was logged, verified, and now legally actionable. Vance closed his laptop halfway. You want to be there, he asked. At the arrest, yes. I thought about it for a second. Then I nodded. Yes. Location, he asked. Apex Rooftop Lounge, I said. Her birthday. He raised an eyebrow slightly. Public, he said. Very, I replied. He considered that, then nodded. Message received, he said. We sat in silence for a moment. The kind that comes after a system finishes running. No more inputs, no more variables. Just output, clean and complete. An hour later, the confirmation came through. Warrant approved, signed, active. Vance slid the document across the table. I glanced at it. Didn't need to read every line. I already knew what it said. Names, charges, authorization, everything in place. This moves fast from here, he said. I know, no turning it off once we start. I'm not turning it off. He nodded. Good. I stood up, picked up my bag. Same routine, same calm. Nothing dramatic. Because this wasn't about emotion. It was about execution. I walked out of the building. The city felt the same. Cars moving, people talking. No one knew what had just happened. That's the thing about systems like this. The biggest shifts happen quietly, until they don't. I got into my car. Started the engine this time. Drove. No music, just the sound of the road. I thought about Brittany, not emotionally, structurally, predictably. She would celebrate, she would post, she would tell everyone how she secured the venue, how her brand was growing, how everything was coming together. Because from her perspective it was. She had no reason to doubt it. No reason to question the system she'd been using for years. That's what made it effective. That's what made it final. My sister spent the next 48 hours getting manicures, picking out her custom dress, and bragging to her elite friends about her massive success. She didn't know the venue she just paid for wasn't going to be her throne. It was going to be her holding cell. I watched the elevator doors close on her reflection and didn't follow. I didn't need to. I already knew how it would end. But the real moment started before that. Right when everything stopped. The music cut out like someone pulled the plug. No fade, no warning, just silence. Sharp, sudden, the kind that makes people look around because their brain doesn't catch up fast enough. The bass dropped first. Then the chatter, then the fake laughter, all gone. 150 people standing on a rooftop suddenly realized they weren't in control of the room anymore. I stayed where I was, back corner, same position, same line of sight. Brittany froze in the center, glass still in her hand, smile halfway gone. She looked around like someone had messed up her script, like this was a technical issue, something she could fix. Then the elevator locked. Click, loud enough to cut through the silence. Heads turned, confusion spread, phones lowered. No one knew what was happening, except me. 6 agents stepped onto the rooftop, calm, direct. No rush, no hesitation. That's what people don't understand about real authority. It doesn't need to announce itself. It just moves. The crowd parted without being told. That's instinct. People recognize control when they see it, even if they don't understand it. Brittany tried to recover, tried to smile again. Is this part of the event? She said, laughing too loud. No one laughed back. Agent Vance walked straight toward her. Didn't look at the decorations, didn't look at the crowd, didn't care about the setting, because this wasn't a party. It was a scene, and he was there to close it. Carol stepped forward first, protective, defensive, always positioning herself between Brittany and consequences. "Excuse me," she said. "What is this?" No response. Vance kept walking. Brittany's confidence cracked. Not all at once, just enough. Her eyes moved, searching, looking for control, looking for someone to fix it. Then she saw me and everything snapped. "It's her," she screamed. Her voice cut through the rooftop. High, sharp, desperate. "She handles my finances." Whatever went wrong, my sister did it. The reaction was instant. Gasps. People stepping back, phones coming up again. But this time not for celebration, for exposure, for damage. Her audience didn't disappear. It shifted. From followers to witnesses. I didn't move, didn't react, didn't defend myself, because I didn't need to. Truth doesn't rush, it waits. Agent Vance walked past me like I wasn't even there, because in that moment, I wasn't the target. I was the source. He stopped in front of her, reached into his jacket, pulled out the cuffs, heavy steel, no hesitation, no drama, just action. "Wait, no, hold on," Brittany said, backing up. Too late. He caught her wrist, turned it clean. Click, first cuff. Her voice broke. "This is a mistake, my sister, Click, second cuff. Done." The sound echoed, not loud, but final. The entire rooftop went still. No one spoke. No one moved. Because now it was real. Not a scene, not content. Reality, raw and irreversible. Carol rushed forward. No, you can't do this," she shouted. "She didn't do anything wrong." An agent stepped between them, firm, controlled. "Ma'am, step back." Carol didn't. She tried to push past, panic now, real panic, not controlled, not filtered. "Fix this," she yelled at me. "Do something. Tell them it's a mistake." That's when Vance reached into his jacket again, not for cuffs, for the file. Thick manila folder. He opened it, didn't lower his voice, didn't step aside. He wanted everyone to hear it. "Brittany Hayes," he said, clear and steady. "We have the IP logs from your personal laptop." The crowd leaned in, not physically, mentally, pulled into it. "And the P.O. box registration signed by your mother, Carol." Carol froze, completely still, no denial, no argument, just silence. That said everything. "You are under arrest for $140,000 in aggravated identity theft and federal wire fraud." Each word landed harder than the last. No one looked at Brittany anymore. They looked at each other, processing, recalculating. Because now they knew. Everything they'd been watching was fake, bought, stolen, manufactured. Her brand, her image, her entire life. Built on someone else's identity, mine. Brittany's face changed. Not just fear, not just panic, collapse. The version of herself she'd been performing couldn't survive that sentence. It didn't have a response, no script, no recovery. She looked at me again. One last time, not accusing, not confident, just empty. Carol wasn't done. She turned to me again, angrier now, more desperate. "You did this," she shouted. "You set her up." I held her gaze. Didn't blink, didn't react. "You told me to absorb the debt, Mom," I said. Flat, cold. I decided to audit it instead. That hit harder than anything Vance said. Because it wasn't legal, it was personal, and she knew it. She stepped back, just a little, enough to break her position, enough to show she understood. The agents turned Brittany toward the elevator. Same one she walked past earlier, now open, waiting, not for guests, for transport. Her heels scraped against the floor as they moved her. No grace left, no performance, just movement. Controlled, directed, final. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God," another person said. "Is this real?" Phone stayed up, recording everything, because this was better than anything she'd ever posted. This was real, unfiltered, unrecoverable. The skyline behind her didn't change. The lights stayed on. The city kept moving, but up there, everything shifted. The illusion was gone. The brand was gone. The system collapsed in under a minute. That's how fragile it was. The elevator doors opened. The agents guided her inside. She didn't fight anymore, didn't speak, just stood there, hands cuffed, head slightly down, the doors closed, slow, deliberate. And just like that, she was gone. The rooftop stayed silent. No music came back. No one tried to restart anything. because no one knew how to act normal after that. Carol stood frozen, no words left, no control left, just consequences. I picked up my glass again, finished what was left, set it down, same spot, same calm, then I turned and walked out. No rush, no audience, no need. The sound of the handcuffs clicking shut on my sister's wrists echoed over the silent Chicago skyline. But the real justice wasn't just watching her get marched into the freight elevator. It was what happened to the woman who enabled her. I walked out of that building and didn't look back. No calls, no messages, just distance. The first 48 hours were loud, not for me, for them. Her accounts went quiet first. No posts, no stories, no updates. Then came the reactions. Comments stacking under her last photo. Is this real? Where are you? What happened at the party? Speculation turned into confirmation fast. Someone uploaded a clip. Just 10 seconds. The cuffs, her voice breaking, Vance reading the charges. That was enough. The algorithm did the rest. By the end of the day, her name wasn't attached to fashion or lifestyle anymore. It was attached to fraud. That's how fast it shifts. The same people who used to comment Queen started deleting photos with her in them. Brand accounts removed tags, collaborations disappeared, contracts got pulled. No statements, no support, just silence. That's the real currency in that world. Attention. And she lost all of it overnight. I didn't watch much of it. Didn't need to. I had my own process. First step was cleanup. Official, documented. I sat across from a different desk this time, different office. Same kind of air conditioning, same kind of hum, but this time the folder in front of me worked in my favor. Federal documentation. Case number. Arrest report. Transaction logs validated by the FBI. Everything tied back. Everything proven. The representative flipped through the pages slowly, more careful than the loan officer had been. Because this wasn't a guess. This was confirmed fraud. We'll begin the correction process immediately, she said. Estimated timeline, 30 to 45 days for full restoration. I nodded, understood. I walked out with a plan, again, because systems don't fix themselves. You fix them, piece by piece, account by account. The debt disappeared the same way it appeared, line by line, removed, reversed, cleared, credit score recalculated. Not instantly, but steadily, back to where it belonged. Meanwhile, their situation moved in the opposite direction. Brittany didn't get out. No quick resolution, no quiet settlement. Federal charges don't work like that. 4 to 7 years was the range. That's what Vance told me. Based on amount, based on duration, based on intent. She had all three. Her lawyer tried to negotiate, tried to reduce, tried to reframe it as misunderstanding. It didn't work. The evidence was too clean, too complete, too structured. That's the downside of running a system for too long. You leave a trail. Carol got pulled in next, not as the primary, but close enough. Accessory to mail fraud. Interference, obstruction. The P.O. box tied everything together. She couldn't deny it. Her signature was on the registration, her name on the paperwork. She tried to explain it, said she was helping, said she didn't know the full picture. No one accepted that. Because the system showed otherwise. She had been intercepting statements for years, making sure I never saw what was happening. That's not ignorance. That's participation. Legal fees started stacking immediately. High-profile defense doesn't come cheap. And they needed it. Or at least they thought they did. Carol listed the house within 2 weeks. The same house she told me I didn't belong in anymore. The same house she told me to leave. It sold fast, below market value. Because urgency kills leverage. Everything inside got liquidated. Furniture, decor, anything with value. Gone. Converted into legal funding. It wasn't enough. It's never enough. Because when the system collapses, it doesn't just take one thing down, it takes everything attached to it. I got letters. First one came 3 weeks after the arrest, handwritten, from Brittany. I recognized the style immediately, same tone she used in messages. Just softer now, more careful. She said it was a mistake. Said she didn't understand how serious it was. Said she needed help. Said she was still my sister. I read it once, folded it back up, didn't respond. Second letter came a week later, from Carol. Different tone, more direct. You need to fix this. Not please, not help. Fix. Like it was still my responsibility. Like I was still part of the system. I didn't respond to that either. More letters came after that. From both of them. Different approaches, apologies, excuses, blame. All variations of the same thing. Trying to pull me back in. Trying to reopen access. I didn't respond to any of them. Because responding would mean engagement, and engagement would mean vulnerability. And I was done with that. 40 days after I walked out of that rooftop, my credit report was clean. Not partially, completely. Every fraudulent account removed. Every mark erased, restored. Like it should have been all along. I went back to the loan office. Same building, same layout, different outcome. The loan officer looked at the new report. Then at me. "Congratulations," she said. "Everything checks out." I nodded. "Thank you." No long conversation, no emotional moment. Just approval. I closed on the townhouse 2 weeks later. Small place, 2 floors, clean lines, large windows, natural light, real light. Not controlled, not staged. Mine. I didn't rush to furnish it. I took my time, set it up the way I wanted. Functional, simple, secure. That part mattered. I installed a full system, cameras, sensors, encrypted network, access controls. No weak points, no open doors. Because once you've seen how easy it is for someone to get in, you don't leave anything exposed. 6 months passed, quiet, no headlines, no updates, just progress, consistent, controlled. That's what real stability looks like. One morning I sat in my living room, sunlight coming through the windows, coffee in my hand, black, no sugar, no distractions, no noise, just silence. The kind that doesn't feel empty, the kind that feels earned. I leaned back, looked around. Everything in that space belonged to me, not legally, not financially, completely, because no one else had access anymore. They thought they could use my name as a blank check because they mistook my discipline for weakness. They learned the hard way that when you steal the identity of someone trained to hunt ghosts, in the dark, you don't just ruin your own life. You hand them the exact weapon they need to erase yours. Blood makes you related, but fraud makes you a felon. And my name finally belongs only to me. I sat in my living room with a cup of black coffee and realized something I didn't expect. The quiet wasn't the reward, clarity was. Because once everything stopped, I could finally see the system for what it was. Not just what they did, but how it worked. And more importantly, why it worked for so long. What happened to me didn't start with fraud. It started with roles. Every family assigns them. The responsible one, the difficult one, the favorite, the fixer. I was the fixer. The one who didn't complain. The one who handled things. The one who didn't need help. That label sounds like respect. It's not, it's a setup. Because once people decide you can handle everything, they stop asking what it costs you. And over time, that turns into expectation. Not appreciation, expectation. My sister didn't suddenly decide to destroy my financial life. She escalated. Slow, controlled. First it was small things. Borrowing, delaying repayment, asking for support, just this once. Then it became normal. Then it became assumed. Then it became invisible. That's how most damage happens, not in one big moment. She needs support. You're the strong one. Family helps each other. That's not support. That's reframing. And reframing is dangerous when it hides reality, because once something is framed as normal, people stop questioning it, even when it crosses a line. That's the first real lesson. The people who enable bad behavior are often more dangerous than the ones doing it, because they remove friction, they remove consequences. They make the system run smoothly. Without them, the behavior collapses early. With them, it grows. And here's the part most people don't want to hear. I helped build that system. Not intentionally, but effectively. Because in a system like that, silence doesn't mean control. It means access, unchallenged access. That's what they had. Access to my identity, access to my stability, access to my silence, and they used it. If something feels slightly off over a long period of time, it usually is. People ignore small inconsistencies because they don't want conflict. They tell themselves it's nothing. They rationalize. They delay. I got clarity because I observed, tracked, verified. That's what changed everything. Not emotion, not reaction, information. Because once you see the full pattern, you stop questioning yourself. You stop wondering if you're overreacting. You stop negotiating with people who already crossed the line. And that leads to the third lesson. Boundaries are not about what you say. They're about what you enforce. Anyone can say that's not okay. Very few people follow it with action, because action has consequences. It creates tension, it changes relationships, and most people avoid that. I didn't avoid it. I delayed it. No one else had a claim. I took a slow sip, set the cup down, and for the first time in a long time, there was nothing left to fix, but in a series of small moments that no one stops. And my mother, she didn't just allow it, she translated it. She took something wrong and made it sound right. Every time I stayed quiet, every time I didn't push back, every time I absorbed the impact without reacting, I reinforced the idea that it was okay, not verbally, structurally. People don't just respond to what you say, they respond to what you tolerate. And I tolerated more than I should have, not because I was weak, because I was trained to focus on the mission, solve the problem, keep moving, don't waste time on emotion. That works in the military. It doesn't always work in a family. Not all at once, but consistently. That's why when everything came out, it looked extreme, but it wasn't sudden, it was accumulated. That's the second lesson. But small inconsistencies are data points, and enough data points form a pattern. And patterns tell the truth long before people do. I didn't get clarity because I confronted them. Until I had control. That's the difference. I didn't confront them when I first found out. Because confrontation without leverage just creates noise. And noise gives the other side time to adjust, time to hide, time to rewrite the story. I didn't give them that. I let the system run. I let it expose itself. And when it did, there was no argument left, just facts. That's why the outcome was final. Because it wasn't based on opinion, it was based on proof. That's something I wish more people understood. You don't need to win an argument. You need to control the outcome. Those are two different things. Winning an argument feels good for a moment. Controlling the outcome changes everything. Another thing I learned. Calm people get underestimated. All the time. If you don't react emotionally, people assume you don't see what's happening. If you don't push back immediately, they assume you won't push back at all. That's a mistake. And it's one I let them make. Because underestimation creates advantage. They thought I would absorb the damage, because I always had. They thought I would fix it quietly, because I always did. They thought I wouldn't escalate, because I never had. That's why they didn't prepare. That's why they didn't hide deeper. That's why they made the final mistake. And that's the last lesson from all of this. Patterns create predictability. Predictability creates vulnerability. Not just for them, for you. If you always respond the same way, people will build their behavior around it. And if your pattern is tolerance, they will keep pushing until something breaks. For me, it broke at the right time, under my control. But it didn't have to get that far. That's the part I would change if I could go back. Not the outcome, the timeline. I would stop it earlier. Set boundaries sooner. Interrupt the pattern before it became a system. Because once a system is in place, removing it comes with damage. And sometimes that damage is permanent. I took a slow sip of my coffee, still warm, still quiet. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to monitor anything. No anomalies, no hidden activity, no unknown variables, just clarity, and that's worth more than anything they ever took. I set the cup down and opened my laptop. Not to check anything urgent, just habit. But this time there was nothing waiting for me. No alerts, no unknown logins, no flagged transactions. That's when it hit me. Most people don't realize they've already lost control until the system breaks. I didn't wait for that. I rebuilt mine. And if you're watching this, you need to understand something early. Protection is not a reaction, it's a structure. You don't deal with problems when they show up. You design your life so fewer problems can reach you in the first place. That starts with awareness, not paranoia. Awareness. You need to know where your information lives, your credit, your accounts, your identity. If you don't know where it is, you don't control it. And if you don't control it, someone else will. The first thing I tell people now is simple. Check your credit more often than you think you need to. Not once a year. Not when you apply for something. Regularly. Because damage doesn't show up all at once. It builds, quietly. A new account here, a missed payment there. By the time you notice, it's already structured. And undoing structure takes time. Set alerts on everything, not just large transactions, everything. If $1 moves, you should know, real time, no delay. Because time is the one thing you don't get back once something starts. I didn't lose control because I didn't care. I lost control because I trusted a system I wasn't actively monitoring. That's a mistake I won't make twice. The second layer is access. Lock your credit when you're not using it. There's no downside. It doesn't cost you anything meaningful, and it blocks the easiest path someone can use to open accounts in your name. People avoid it because it feels inconvenient. It's not. What's inconvenient is spending months cleaning up something that could have been prevented in minutes. Use strong authentication, not basic passwords, not repeated logins, unique credentials, two-factor authentication on everything that matters. Because once someone gets into one account, they start mapping the rest. That's how systems get compromised, not through one big breach, through small, connected entries. And here's the part most people skip: documentation. If something goes wrong, your memory doesn't matter, your emotions don't matter. What matters is what you can prove. Dates, times, transactions, screenshots, logs, if you don't have it recorded. It didn't happen in the eyes of the system. That's the reality. I didn't win because I told a convincing story. I won because I had evidence that couldn't be challenged, clean, structured, complete. That's what made it irreversible. Now let's talk about something harder: money and family, because that's where most people lose control without realizing it. If someone asks you for financial help, pause. Not emotionally, logically. Ask yourself one question: does this make sense as a transaction, not as a favor, not as an obligation, as a transaction? If the answer is no, it's not about money, it's about access. And once you give access, it rarely stops at one point. It expands, gradually, until it becomes expected. That's how I got here, not because of one decision, because of a pattern of decisions I didn't interrupt. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your resources. Not your family, not your friends, no one. Support has limits. And if it doesn't, it's not support anymore. It's supply. Another thing people struggle with is saying no. They think no creates conflict. It doesn't. It reveals it. If someone reacts badly to a reasonable boundary, the problem was already there. You just exposed it. And that's a good thing, because hidden problems grow. Exposed problems can be managed or removed. You don't need to explain your boundaries in detail. You don't need to negotiate them. You don't need to defend them. Set them, enforce them, move on. That's it. One of the biggest advantages I had was silence. Not passive silence, controlled silence. I didn't respond to every message. I didn't react to every request. I didn't engage in conversations that didn't serve a purpose. That's not avoidance. That's control. Because every time you engage, you give the other person information about how you think, how you feel, how you might respond next time. And that information can be used, sometimes against you, sometimes just to keep the system running. Silence removes that. It limits access. It forces the other side to operate without feedback. And that creates mistakes. Mistakes create openings. Openings create control. That's how you shift the balance. Another thing I want to be clear about: you don't have to fix everything. Not every problem is yours. Not every situation needs your involvement. And not every person deserves your effort. That's a hard one for people who are used to being the reliable one. The one who shows up. The one who solves things. But reliability without boundaries turns into exploitation. Every time. You can still be reliable, just not for everyone, and not for everything. Choose where your energy goes, because once it's gone, you don't get it back. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the screen. Still nothing. No alerts, no anomalies. That's what control feels like. Not dramatic, not loud, just stable, predictable, secure. And if you take anything from what happened to me, it should be this: you don't need to wait until something breaks to take control. You can build it now, quietly, systematically, before anyone even realizes there's something to take. I closed the laptop and didn't open it again. No reason to. Everything that needed attention was already handled. That kind of silence feels different when you earn it. Not empty, not uncomfortable, just stable. And that's when I started thinking about what I would have done differently. Not the ending. I wouldn't change that. I would change how long it took me to get there. Because the truth is, I saw parts of this early, not the full picture, but enough signals, enough inconsistencies. I just didn't act on them. And if you're watching this, you've probably done the same thing. You notice something small, a behavior that doesn't feel right, a pattern that doesn't make sense. But you let it go because it's easier, because you don't want conflict, because you tell yourself it's not a big deal. That's where it starts. Small, quiet, easy to ignore. If I could go back, I would trust that instinct earlier. Not emotionally, logically. If something repeats, it's not random. If something feels off more than once, it's not a coincidence. It's a pattern. And patterns deserve attention, not excuses. Another thing I would tell myself is this. Pay attention to what people do when you say no, not what they say, what they do, because that's where the truth shows up. Anyone can say they respect you. Anyone can say they understand. But when you set a boundary and they push back, that's information, real information. If someone respects your limit, they adjust. If they don't, they apply pressure, guilt, frustration, manipulation, sometimes subtle, sometimes obvious, but it's always there. And that pressure is not about understanding. It's about control. They're not asking anymore. They're expecting. And expectations without permission are just another way of taking. I learned that late, later than I should have. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you stop responding the same way, the dynamic changes. Fast. That's something most people aren't ready for. When you change your behavior, people around you react, not always well, because they were comfortable with the version of you that said yes, the version that absorbed things, the version that didn't push back. When that version disappears, it creates friction. And people blame you for that friction, not the system that created it. You. That's why so many people go back. Because standing your ground feels like you're the one causing the problem. You're not. You're exposing it. There's a difference. I didn't lose my family. I lost access to a system that required me to be available at all times. That's not the same thing. And once I understood that, the guilt went away. Not instantly, but steadily. Because guilt only works when you believe you did something wrong. And protecting yourself is not wrong, no matter how uncomfortable it makes other people. Another thing I wish someone told me earlier, you don't have to explain everything. You don't need long conversations to justify your decisions. You don't need to convince people to agree with you. That's not your job. Your job is to make decisions that protect your life. That's it. Agreement is optional. Control is not. And control doesn't come from being louder. It comes from being consistent. Small actions, repeated, over time. That's how you shift anything. Not through one big moment, but through patterns. The same way the problem started. That's how you fix it. One decision at a time. Another thing people misunderstand. Silence. They think silence means weakness, avoidance, fear. Sometimes it does, but not always. Used correctly, silence is structure. It limits what other people can access. It removes their ability to adjust based on your reactions. It gives you space to think, to observe, to plan. That's what I used, not because I was avoiding the situation, because I was controlling it. There's a difference, a big one, and it's one you need to understand if you want to protect yourself. You don't have to react immediately to everything. In fact, you shouldn't. Take time, collect information, build your position, then act, not before. Because once you act, the system changes, and you don't always get a second chance to do it clean. I took a breath and leaned back. The room was still quiet. Sunlight coming through the windows, nothing moving, nothing demanding my attention. That's not luck, that's design. And if there's one thing I want you to take from everything you've heard, it's this. Your life is a system, whether you realize it or not. People interact with it. They test it. They learn how it responds. And if your system has no boundaries, they will expand inside it until there's nothing left for you. So you need to build it differently, set limits early, enforce them consistently, and don't negotiate them with people who already ignored them. Because negotiation only works when both sides respect the line. If they don't, you're just moving it. And every time you move it, you lose ground. I picked up my coffee again, took one last sip, still warm, still quiet. Exactly the way I wanted it. If this story made you look at your own situation differently, if it made you question something you've been ignoring, then don't wait. Don't let it build. Don't let it turn into something you have to fix later. Take control now, quietly, deliberately. And if you want more stories like this, not just drama, but real lessons you can actually use, subscribe to the channel, because the difference between a story and a warning is whether you act on it.